What's up, cool people? My name's Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. So now we're looking at Deuteronomy chapter 30, which is after the covenant has been laid out kind of multiple times. Because there was, chapters 27 and 28 that, really kind of said, okay, here's the covenant, write it down. And then Moses goes back and reviews it. Debatably, even before that, with some of the commands that were laid out at much greater length. But, yeah. People about to head into the promised land kind of need to know how they're supposed to live, and behave as representatives of God. And, again, with this time frame that this is happening in, the repetition helps. Because they're probably not going to be reading it very much, if at all. So anyway, yeah. Suppose that's all I'll say regarding context. Here we go. Deuteronomy chapter 30. In the future, when you experience all these blessings and curses I have listed for you, and when you are living among the nations to which the Lord your God has exiled you, take to heart all these instructions. If at that time you and your children return to the Lord your God, and if you obey with all your heart and all your soul all the commands I have given you today, then the Lord your God will restore your fortunes. He will have mercy on you and gather you back from all the nations where he has scattered you. Even though you are banished to the ends of the earth, the Lord your God will gather you from there and bring you back again. The Lord your God will return you to the land that belonged to your ancestors, and you will possess that land again. Then he will make you even more prosperous and numerous than your ancestors. So, it's practically stated as a given here that, yeah, all these blessings and curses that were laid out, they're all gonna happen. So after all that, if you come back to this and follow God once more, he will return you to the land that has been promised to Abraham, Isaac, all your forefathers, and for the people at that time, when all this happens, the land that was deemed as belonging to their ancestors, which essentially is the people Moses is talking to right now. Footnote here. Hebrews says of the heavens, rather than being banished to the ends of the earth, which is interesting. Because, that implies something quite different. It's not like they would have literally been living up in the clouds, but it almost makes me wonder if this is kind of referring to their souls and the state in which those will exist and where they will reside, but that maybe it's more so like a figurative state of their souls, because bringing them back again, bringing their souls back again would kind of imply that, their eternal residence, for lack of a better way to put it, would end up changing. And I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's a biblically consistent way of looking at any of this. That God, would take somebody from hell, essentially, and, because their descendants turned back to him that, like, oh yeah, okay, these people turned back, so now their ancestors who were in hell, they get to come to heaven now. I don't think that's what it's saying. But I guess it could also be saying the heavens there in the original Hebrew, because that was deemed, like, even further away than the earth, because it's, like, up there in addition to out there. So it could have been almost like a slight use of a hyperbolic analogy. But that's just kind of my own speculation and thoughts on that specific wording there. Anyway. Okay, moving on to verse 6. The Lord your God will change your heart and the hearts of all your descendants, so that you will love him with all your heart and soul, and so you may live. The Lord your God will inflict all these curses on your enemies and on those who hate and persecute you. Then you will again obey the Lord and keep all his commands that I am giving you today. I think it's kind of implied, I mean, the change of heart could be coming from God before they go back to the promised land post-exile. Or it could be saying that, after they turn back to God, then he will kind of fill them again with the righteousness they're supposed to have. And, they will then continue following his commands and, loving him with heart and soul, as it says there in verse 6. Footnote there at heart. Hebrew says, will circumcise your heart. So, circumcision being a mark of being God's people. It's still kind of the same idea, but more specifically, it's like, okay, it's, God will bring you back into the fold, so to speak. Like, you won't be beholden to the curses anymore. You'll be deemed, part of God's people, worthy of his affection and protection. But essentially, God would be, would be changing their ways of living, their habits, their thinking towards that better way of living again. Verse 9. The Lord your God will then make you successful in everything you do. He will give you many children and numerous livestock, and he will cause your fields to produce abundant harvests. For the Lord will again delight in being good to you as he was to your ancestors. The Lord your God will delight in you if you obey his voice and keep the commands and decrees written in this book of instruction, and if you turn to the Lord your God with all your heart and soul. Kind of further emphasizing that, yes, they will be blessed once more when they turn back. So it's not just a, oh, you messed up and broke the covenant, there's no chance of you as a people being redeemed ever again. This is kind of reminding them that even when things go horribly wrong, and it seems like it couldn't get any worse, there's still a chance at redemption if you come back to God. Okay. And then, of course, after that, God will, kind of undo all the bad, in a way. Or at least make things better once again for them. All right. Different little subsection here. But anyway, verse 11. This command I am giving you today is not too difficult for you, and it is not beyond your reach. It is not kept in heaven, so distant that you must ask, who will go up to heaven and bring it down so we can hear it and obey? It is not kept beyond the sea, so far away that you must ask, who will cross the sea to bring it to us so we can hear it and obey? No, the message is very close at hand. It is on your lips and in your heart so that you can obey it. See, the whole heaven distance thing just kind of had me thinking, okay, maybe my thought about the distance being what it was alluding to, with them being banished to the ends of the heavens, as it says in verse 4 here. Maybe that was the proper way to think of it. But anyway, I tend to lean towards like, hey, there are probably multiple accurate, reasonable ways of interpreting these things. Multiple ways that they could be useful for instruction. But anyway, so now Moses is kind of telling them, hey, look, this is doable. God isn't asking you to, do some crazy thing out there that, like, it's completely unobtainable. Which is all the more reason why, they should be expected to follow it. Okay, verse 15. Now listen, today I'm giving you a choice between life and death, between prosperity and disaster. For I command you this day to love the Lord your God and to keep his commands, decrees, and regulations by walking in his ways. If you do this, you will live and multiply, and the Lord your God will bless you and the land you are about to enter and occupy. But if your heart turns away and you refuse to listen, and if you are drawn away to serve and worship other gods, then I warn you now that you will certainly be destroyed. You will not live a long, good life in the land you are crossing the Jordan to occupy. So, This sounds like a very, I don't know if inspirational is quite the best word, but this sentence right here is really kind of making it plain and simple and boiling all this down to its essence. Like, okay, look, if you follow this, things will go well. You're choosing life and prosperity. But if you disobey, you're choosing death and disaster. And it's really that simple if you boil it down to the heart of the matter. But it is still a choice. Like, they, just because they've been given all these commands doesn't mean they're completely incapable of, falling away from that covenant and turning from what God has set out for them. And again, goes well if they obey, goes bad if they disobey. It's kind of repetitious again, but like being worded in slightly different ways. Still very much driving home the point, though. Okay. Then, verse 19. Today I have given you the choice between life and death, between blessings and curses. Now I call on heaven and earth to witness the choice you make. Oh, that you would choose life, so that your descendants might live. You can make this choice by loving the Lord your God, obeying him, and committing yourself firmly to him. This is the key to your life. And if you love and obey the Lord, you will live long in the land the Lord swore to give your ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So, now he's specifically saying, all right, just so it's clear, choosing life means, loving the Lord your God, obeying him, and committing yourself to him. Like, that is how you choose life in this situation. Not through any other means. It's by obeying. Now, of course, the situation's a little bit different in this day and age regarding Christians and, being part of the promises of God. But back in this context, in the Old Testament, for the Israelites, it was all about sticking to the covenant. Footnote there. Oh. So it could be read as he is the key to your life rather than this. When you say this, it implies that, obedience is the key to your life. But if you say he instead, it's saying God is the key to your life, which then makes it all the more consistent, even with New Testament ideas. And see, this is why I'm super glad I look at these footnotes, because it can bring a whole different, even just one word change can bring a whole different perspective on it that might actually make it, more consistent with the entirety of the biblical narrative. So, as many people would be quick to point out, according to the New Testament, it is not through your own works that you are deemed righteous and that you are saved, but through faith in Jesus. So essentially, Jesus being part of the God Trinity theology, it's all confusing and stuff for most people, actually, really in general, for basically everybody. Nobody really fully understands the Trinity. But it, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, three kind of essences all in the same being, though. It's generally assumed when it talks about the Lord, I would say, in the Old Testament, it's referring more so to God the Father specifically. But really, it's all God anyway. So, back to the whole word change here, saying that he is the key to your life. It's really all about the commitment to God and pursuing God. Don't get so hyper-focused on the obedience and the commands that you lose sight of God in amongst all that. That's a problem that the Pharisees end up having in the New Testament, and why Jesus takes issue with them so often. But it's all about God, not the commands. The commands are just a sign of how God wants them to act. Anyway, I think I've said enough on that point. Repetition, driving it in. It's like I'm putting myself mentally in that context, even though I have knowledge of other things that happen far later. But anyway, I digress. So I guess that's going to do it for Deuteronomy chapter 30. Okay, so after laying out the terms of the covenant, Moses kind of gives them another bit of encouragement, I would say, that, even after all the curses that they heard about end up befalling them, whenever that happens, they still can turn back to God and have things go well for them again. So, essentially he's saying, look, no matter how bad things get, you always have the chance of turning back to God and making things right. So I consider that to be encouragement. But anyway, so, as always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell if you're on YouTube to get updates when I post new videos. You can also follow me on Rumble if you find this there. Similar idea. And, of course, look down in the description for info on other social media pages and how to find and follow those. And down below that, leave comments with any thoughts you have. So that's going to do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you for the next video. But until then, stay cool, people.